Master Harika Dronavalli versus women Grandmaster Zhu Jiner. So this is India versus China, and we are looking at the first standard game of the matches. And there will be two standard games, and then two rapid games, and four blitz games. But for today, we'll be only seeing one standard game. And here we already started a little bit late, and now we are seeing game number one, and Zhu Jiner is playing white pieces, and then Harika is playing black pieces. So it is also worth noting that the white player is currently number one girl in the world. And then the black player, Harika, is also a very most decorated player in India, having just won a bronze medal in Olympiad recently in Chennai. And yeah, so without further ado, maybe we can take a look at a few of the moves here. And then when the players are starting to think a little bit longer, then we can continue about details about each player. Okay. So the game goes with e4, e5. I can flip the board. Yes, sorry. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5. And now it is looking like a roll-up system, but this bishop c5 is kind of quite a new system. Well, not very new, but it is a little bit trendy at the moment. Castle is a very safe option to play as white. It is also another big task for each player to complete development and to put the king into a safety side. Knight d4 is on the board, and then knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, c3, bishop b6. So far we're looking at all the natural moves for both white and black. And Zhu Jiner continued with d4, c6, bishop a4, and then d6. This d6 looks like it's kind of offering some exchange of the queens early. If, for example, d takes e, and then queen takes e, and that position might be not what Zhu Jiner had in mind, because as white, normally you would like to go for a quick attack or a good transition from the opening to the middle game, because white is normally slightly better. But now, white has started to think a little bit longer, probably trying to find out what would be the best strategy to continue on this game, because I think both of the players are already out of preparation. And the next task for black is obviously to develop the knight on g8 and probably castle as quick as possible, because this is important for both sides to continue in a very dynamic manner. Okay, so I haven't finished my introduction about both players, but we just look at h3 on the board coming, and now it is probably good for black to move around the knight, but still has to be careful, because if the knight goes to f6, there might be some pain over bishop g5, although at the moment I don't think that's very dangerous, but it is worth noting about. And on the other hand, black also has another option to play knight e7, and then will castle immediately afterwards. So let's wait what Harika will decide on this position. And thank you to the Qatar Chess Association. This friendly match can happen, and this is actually a very good encouragement and also support to women's chess, especially Asian women's chess. And this is also my big honor to be the host commentator for this match as well. Okay, knight e7 is again on the board, just like what expected before. And I think this is the safe option for black to continue. And then after castle, bishop e6 probably. I don't see anything that black has to worry about. And on the other hand, for white, I think white still has a little bit slightly better because white has a slightly space advantage. So maybe if I were white here, I think bishop e3, knight bd2 is in order. The rook may stay on f1, trying to prepare for f4. And yeah, I think this game is going to be very interesting because from the starting point, we can already tell that this is going to be a strategical game. But who knows? Maybe later on, it will turn into some tactical. But for now, at least the first few moves, both players are playing the principled moves. So in the opening side, I think both players are already in the safe side. So yeah, I cannot wait to see what's gonna coming next. And don't forget, this broadcast is also broadcasted on Licha's YouTube channel, also on Twitch, lichas.org. So if you have time to hop around and then to find us in the broadcast, it would be good. Okay. If you can take a look, it is interesting to see the rating of both players. Before the broadcast, I was actually looking at the profile of both players, and apparently both of them haven't played so much on Lichess, and that's why their rating is so low. So I think this is a good start for them to start, playing on Lichess and then gain their ratings. Okay. There are still so many. Okay. Yeah. So I was a bit delayed before about the introduction, but here we go. So Zhu Jiner is currently holding a WGM title, and her rating is currently 2486, number one among girls under 20. Zhu Jiner was born on November 16, 2002 in Zhejiang province. It's a very famous place for Chinese chess talents. Former women's world champion Zhu Chan and Su Yuhua also came from Zhejiang, and also Ding Liren, who will compete for the title of world chess champion, also from Zhejiang province. And another grandmaster is Lu Shanglei, a member of the Chinese team in the World Team Championship, and Ding Yixin, also a member of the 2019 Women's World Team Championship team. So Zhejiang is the birth of many Chinese great players. And to continue, in October 2016, Zhu Jiner won the FIDE World Youth Championships in under 14 category. In May 2019, she won the National Women's Individual Championship. In October 2019, she won the zonal tournament, and November 2021 last year, she became the third place in the FIDE Women's Grand Swiss Tournament. In 2020, Zhu Jiner became Women's Grandmaster at the 2019 SCO Open and the 2021 Women's Grand Swiss Tournament. So in total, Zhu Jiner scored 2 GM norms. And also another player, Harika Dronavalli. I think this player needs no introduction. She is an Indian grandmaster with current rating of 2507 and currently ranked 12th in the world. Born on January 12, 1991 in the Guntur district of Andhra Pradesh, India, Harika obtained the silver medal in the 2000 World Youth Girls Under 10 Championships, with one more under 12 silver medal 2001. In 2003, she became the youngest women's international master in Asia. In 2004, she became the youngest women's grandmaster in Asia. And in 2006, she won the World Youth Under 18 category at 15 years old. In 2008, she won the World Girls Championship Under 20. And there's so many achievements that Harika, a dear friend of mine, has created so far. And I just also couldn't believe my eyes when I actually saw her playing, being 9 months pregnant when we were playing in the Olympiad in Chennai, and she showed such a good spirit for her games and also for her team. So yeah, she is a very great role model. So are we having new moves on the board? Nope. So currently, yeah, white is still thinking. Yeah, I think this is quite a critical position to think about, because you don't want to put your pieces on wrong squares or or wrong place, because this requires a very good strategical thinking. Bishop e3 on the board. This is one of the natural moves that I already mentioned before, and yeah, maybe what's coming next after bishop e3 is knight d2, but we will see, because f4 is also interesting. At some point, I don't think the diagonal of a7 to g1 is that dangerous. I think it's very well protected. And yeah, but I think for now it is safe to say that black just needs to castle, and then just black just has to wait and see what white has in mind, because then black will react to the idea. We can also see from the video how both players are thinking hard. This is still the first game, so I don't know how warmed up they feel, because we still has also many games to go. So today we will play one game, one standard game, and the time control is 60 minutes plus 30 seconds per move. So today one standard game and tomorrow another standard game, and then followed by 2 rapid games and 4 blitz games on the same day of December 12th. So I would say, I think it is my prediction that the deciding points will be in the shorter time control, but I might be wrong. Maybe they would also press hard in the standard games, because this is how we play chess. I think women's chess, we are more fighting, and then we are more fierce over the board. And even though it looks like it might be quite equalish right now, but I'm sure it will turn into some fire on the board. So yeah, Harika just played castle, and I'm curious to see what Zhu Jiner had in mind now. Okay, queen e2 is on the board. I'm thinking, yeah, I'm actually thinking, why not knight d2? But I think queen e2 is equally good. Maybe, usually what I see in this position, whenever you play queen e2 in such a position, you want to put your rook on d1 and then put pressure on the d file. Not necessarily towards the queen, but just to have more pressure and support over the center file. This is actually interesting. I think this type of position is very instructive for everyone to learn. This can be, a sample position for your sparring game with your friends. So yeah, probably in this position, bishop e6, another natural move can be played. or king h8, yeah, bishop e6 or king h8 with the idea of f5. But yeah, this looks a bit too aggressive, I would say. So probably Harika will find something that's more safe and more solid. Yeah. So I think time is not an issue at this moment. White still has 54 minutes and black has 58. Still very much a lot of time on the clock. And I think both players will have to be really careful. Even though usually on the first game, most players will take it easy. But let's see what's coming in this position. So I think we can try to analyze it a bit. I can just click on this one. Yep. So 45. Yeah. Oh, okay. I'll flip this board like what we normally saw. Yeah, I was just running this position a little bit, and probably in this position, it is also very thematic to just take the pawn like this, takes, and then if takes by the pawn and then d5 is coming. So yeah, this is a standard continuation for such a pawn structure. Either white took or not the pawn, like if e5 is coming, then maybe this position knight can just safely being put on f5, or even bishop f5 is also fine. So in this position, I think now it's slightly better for black. So that being said, after e d4, probably it's better to take it with the bishop. So yeah, so if the same scenario happens, like bishop takes, c takes, and then d5, at least there's no more pressure over the d pawn. Yeah, so probably, yeah, I don't really like the queen e2 moves. I think white could have done something better, but it is hard to say in such a position because even queen e2 looks very natural as well. Yeah, computers suggest in this position to play bishop b3, just to avoid anything, any plan that I just showed for black to take on d4 and then play d5. So if that happens again, bishop takes, and d5 will, well, d5 can still happen, but it will not really make any concession to white's position. Do we have new move on the game? Let's take a look. Yes. So apparently Harika did what we just analyzed. Yeah, let's move back a little bit. So after queen e2, black took on d4, and we already analyzed that if c takes d4, and after d5, this position is just better for black. So it would be better for white to take the d4 pawn with the bishop. Yeah. So after this, and e5. So e5 is apparently another positional mistake because in this position, knight c3. Okay, we can analyze it again. Yes, because yeah, in this position, white should have played knight c3, allowing the pawn on d4 to be an isolated pawn. That might be giving a more chance for white's position. And then what happened after takes? And then just take it back. So it looks a bit ugly because yeah, this knight on e7 can safely have an outpost on d5, but I think this is still a better continuation because then white might want to use the bishop on a4 and then to divert it somewhere over c2, for example, and then looking over the king side rather than being very passive and playing e5. And then this pawn, I have a feeling this pawn will later be the deciding point of the game. That it might not be immediately because I don't see how it can be fallen anytime soon. Even with the pressure with the knight to f5, it can easily be protected with rook d1 or any other moves. But normally such a pawn in the center, it needs to be protected by another pawn, and it looks a bit hanging to me. So, and also in this position, it is very typical for black to move something like f6, just opening the f file, and because yeah, I mean black has a much better pawn structure due to these two pawns in the center. I'm reading a little bit of the chat here especially on Twitch. Does it transpose into some advanced Caro-Kann? I don't think so because advanced Caro-Kann you need the bishop to be on f5, and this normally doesn't look like it. I think if anything, it should be looking like transposition from some Italian defense. Okay, let's back to the game. Maybe there are still more. Okay. Yep. So knight f5, we left the position when d5 and e5 was played, and knight f5 attacking the pawn on d4. And instead of protecting the pawn on d4, Zhu Jiner opted for a more aggressive continuation by playing bishop c2. This is nice. Yeah, this bishop belongs on that diagonal. This bishop is very much needed on this diagonal b1 h7 because I think this is the only attack that white can afford. And now we just wait and see, because if knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, bishop takes d4, and then there will be queen d3, and it is a double attack toward the bishop on d4 and a checkmate on h7. So it is a pretty simple tactic that Zhu Jiner is trying to create. But I'm sure black will not fall into it. But on the other hand, black also has to do something about her king side, because if black is just doing nothing, white will continue with all the development that she's needed. For example, knight c3 and then rook d1, and probably at some point playing a pawn march like g4, f4, and so on, just trying to exploit the diagonal of b1, h7. Yeah, both players they have to be very careful because positionally speaking, black is a bit better, but black has to also know the concrete ways to continue and not to fall into tactics, that's for sure. The some ways to overcome the attack by the bishop and any future threats is probably the f6, the typical f6 here. Black just desperately needed to do something with the rook, not only defending the king but also probably using the whole f file as the opening gate for black's attack. And also by doing so, that the queen probably can be placed on f6 and then pressuring on f6. Sorry, pressuring on d4 more. Yeah, this will be a very good puzzle example to teach the kids like what happened after knight d4 or what happened after bishop d4, and or the other question would be is the d4 pawn hanging at the moment and why is that, and so on. So this standard games of 60 plus 30, I think I've had it in my life before over the board. I think there was some tournament in Australia that I played this time control, and we played for like 3 games a day. It is not that short, but it is not that long either. So it is actually for some it can be a little bit confusing, but I'm sure these two players, they are both professional players. They can play in any time control, so they know how to manage the time, when to play fast and when to play slow. And again, for the past few moves that we saw, it's been quite critical moment for both colors. So I think it is necessary for now to think a little bit longer, not only to try to apply their own idea, but also try to anticipate opponent's idea. f6 is being played. Yep. Again, I think so far Harika has been playing the principled moves that need to be played in such a typical position and pawn structure. So yeah, now Zhu Jiner really has to be careful. I think one of Zhu Jiner's advantage of being such a good player is she has a very good tactical vision, and Harika on the other hand, she's a very very solid player. I've known her since we were a teenager, and yeah, she's been playing very very solid chess. And but for Zhu Jiner, so this is quite interesting. Both players, they have like a contrast characteristics, and we're just going to see what's happened on the board. If somehow the game goes into like a more strategical positional play, I think Harika is in the upper hand. But on the other side, if it's a very complicated game, full of calculation, full of many tactical potentials, I think Zhu Jiner will be a little bit better. Rating wise, both players have slightly different rating. Even though Zhu Jiner is not a grandmaster yet, but she has a very bright future. She is only 20 and she already got 2 GM norms in hand. But again, Harika is a very well-seasoned player, so this match I think is going to be very interesting. F6 is played and then followed by bishop takes f5, bishop takes f5. Now what we are seeing on the board is white has a pass pawn on e5, but black has a pair of bishops. And both players are trying to prove which one is a better advantage. Because, well, normally we would like to have a pass pawn. That's true. But also, on the other hand, sometimes we also like to have a pair of bishops, especially in a open position or where the bishops have open diagonals and they can be very, very dangerous. And I think in this position, a pair of bishops is more favorable due to the passiveness of the bishop on e3. And yeah, even though there is a pass pawn at the moment, it cannot be really used because usually when we have a pass pawn and it is going to be very advantageous for us in the endgame phase. In this position or in this phase in the middle game, yeah, white still cannot really use that type of advantage. So with queen e8, I think black tries to go to g6 followed by rook to e8, something like this. And then just to create pressure little by little, the knight will go to c3. But yeah, but white also has to be careful about the skewer on d3 later on. So yeah, unfortunately for white, yeah, black is looking a bit better in this position. Black has so many moves to make. I mean, black has so many ideas that she can choose from, while white, I think white just has to wait and not to fall apart too soon. Yeah, we can see both players are thinking very hard. And yeah, this is quite instructive. I'd like to see the continuation of this, especially how black will try to create more pressure over white's position, or how white will defend this type of position. Can Zhu Jiner defend this? We will see. Not only an attacking player, but I think for a player like her level, Zhu Jiner, I'm sure she's also a very good defender. And that's actually what it is required to be a great player like both of them. You have to know when to defend and you have to know when to attack. You have to know when you are better than your opponent or vice versa. So, and also you have to know about a very good time management. But for time right now, it's not really a worry because yeah, both still have much time on the clock. So for those who just joined with us, welcome. We're watching a friendly match between Grandmaster Harika Dronavalli from India versus woman Grandmaster Zhu Jiner from China. This is a friendly match that's organized by the Qatar Chess Association. It is a very good encouragement and support for women's chess. And we're looking at the first standard game at the moment with the time control of 60 minutes plus 30 seconds per move. And the first game of standard game is being played today, and tomorrow at the same time we will continue to see the second standard game. And then on the last day, December 12th, we will see 2 rapid games and 4 blitz games. So I'm sure it will be very, very interesting and exciting. And my prediction is that the deciding games will be with the shorter time control. But now we actually are looking at one decisive game. I was I was thinking, and I was actually predicting that today would be like a quite relaxing game because this is like the first game they're going to play on Lichess and on such a time control with the 60 plus 30. But apparently, no, they're fighting all the way. And yeah, and if I'm not wrong, out of the openings and middle game right now, yeah, both players are trying to outplay each other. I was a bit skeptical before that the choice of the opening by Harika, but turns out it was pretty good. The continuation of the game was in Black's favor. So Queen G6 was played, and White immediately played Rook F3. This is interesting. Maybe at some point this G4 will come, and then there will be some pawn march in the king side. It looks very aggressive, but at the same time, it can be a double-edged sword because it is looking like an attacking move, but also it might be weakening the king. So if White decides to do so, White has to be very careful and very, you know, conscious about the king's safety. Yeah, what makes me curious is Rook F3 was being played instantly, so I wonder what Zhu Jiner has in mind. Or probably in this position, the king can just go to h2 first and then Rook g1 and then later on g4 can be played. But this is going to be very interesting because the bishop and the queen looks like a very good piece in this position, and I'm sure queen g6 was being played. It's a natural move, and rook e8 is in order. But yeah, this rook f3 is quite interesting to play. If there's g4 on the board, I would be very happy because it is for sure going to be a very fighting game. But we'll see. We'll see what's going to happen. And in the meantime, let's analyze this position. So let me check. So we were analyzing up to e5 and then knight f5, bishop here. f6 was a good move. Bishop takes, and then f4. Yeah, f4 is a unusual, but it's a good move. Yeah, I mean it is. I think it is required to be played in this position. And after queen e8 is another principled and natural move. And after knight c3, queen g6 is good. Yes. And rook f3 is surprisingly what the computer also suggested. That was being instantly played by Zhu Jiner. So yeah, in this position, there are a few good moves that can be played by black. I think the best is just to take on e5. So let's say f takes e5 and then f takes e5 and then bishop d3. And then exchanging one of the rooks and then put the other rook on f8. Yeah, so that is probably what needs to be done. Otherwise, I think black cannot afford having a g4 attack or that type of pawn march on the king side. So at least if this is being played and then one of the rooks gets exchanged, and then another rook coming to f8, it will be preventing white to do anything with g4 because it's just going to be weaken the white's game. So let's back to the game and see if they already have new moves on the board. Apparently still thinking. Harika is still thinking. Yeah, this is not easy. I mean, we can tell about f takes e5, f takes e5, bishop d3, and then exchange the rook and so on. But during the game, it's not easy to understand the whole situation. And oh, but apparently Harika found it. F takes e5, and it's no brainer to take it back with the f pawn, because if we take it with the other pawn, this pawn on d5 will be just a pass pawn, and it's going to be very dangerous. So f takes e5, f takes e5, and now such a move usually comes with another move. Bishop d3 is on the board. That is amazing. Bishop d3 is on the board. So I predict that one of the rooks will get exchanged now, as we mentioned before, and then another rook will come to f8, just try to pressurize the king side with all the pieces. So now it's either white takes on f8 and then rook takes and then queen moves somewhere, or queen goes to f2 and then takes on f3, but this will be just the same thing. I think the outcome will be pretty similar in the end, the final position of all the exchanges on f8. So, but I think the better option would be, yeah, to take it first, and now the queen can move freely anywhere, probably to d2. I don't see a better place than d2. So probably going to d2, but this will be still slightly better for black. I don't think the queen will try to get to g4 and exchange the other queen, because I think in the endgame it would be much preferable for black. So let's see, queen d2 I think is in order. But it is also surprising to see, like, we are into 45 minutes of playing, and we almost get to the end game. Oh, queen g4 is in order. So queen g4. So queen g4, white allows double pawn if queen takes, h takes, and then probably this pawn is going to be pretty weak as well. But the question is how to get it, because it's not that easy, because this bishop is currently on d3, and this pawn can just safely being pushed to g5, and probably black is probably still better anyway. But now the question is whether or not to take on the queen. I believe taking the queen would still be better, or even not taking the queen also, black is still better. Yes, both options work for black, so it's just up to Harika right now whether she wants a more complicated position or just to clarify things. Because definitely queen takes g4, in a hindsight, it's just much better for black. The pawn structure of white's on the center, d4 and e5, it's not really into white's favor. Plus, if white has another double, well, if there's a double pawn on the g file, then it's just worsening the white's position. Yeah, if I were black, I think I would just take on g4. But again, black has still so much time on the clock. I think it is the right decision right now to think a little bit, because in the end game you have to think ahead, plan ahead, not to be impulsive, and just to make sure whether it is a strategically correct move. There is one there's one funny line here that the computer might suggest. Okay, let's put this on the analysis. So after queen g4, queen takes g4, h takes g4. So apparently this bishop on b6 is kind of, you know, even though it looks good fartening on d4, but there's nothing else that it can do. So you might want to transfer it to bishop d8. Possibly it's because you want to play h6 now. Because if you play h6 immediately, maybe g5 will be the move later. So h6 with the idea of king h7, king g6, and then I don't know, probably putting the knight there, oh, the king there, and then later you can play bishop g5. Just exchange one of the bishops, and then try to get a hold of the pawns. And if somehow there is rook d1, let's say rook d1 is being played, and this bishop has to stay over this diagonal. Wow. So this bishop can change whether to stay in this diagonal or the other diagonal, and it is better to be put on this diagonal so that the rook cannot be exchanged on f1. That is the idea. So in this position, I think to win the game, black has to keep the rook on the board to complement the pair of the bishop. Because when the rooks are off the board, I think it's gonna be harder for black to achieve something. Okay, that's a little analysis. Let's back to the game. Hopefully there's already some move played. Okay, Harika is still playing. Yes, this is a critical decision to make, whether to take the queen or not to take the queen. But luckily for black, both options work. So it's just a matter of whether Harika wants to play like a safe chess. We just saw it. Queen takes g4, h takes g4. And now I'm curious whether black will find bishop d8 on the board, because it is not a very natural move to make. It's a little bit counterintuitive, because this bishop could be easily looking very well on b6, threatening d4, so that this bishop on e3 cannot move anywhere. But on the other hand, yeah, that is the bishop only task, and probably there's a better way or better square or diagonal for that bishop to function. Or what else can be done in this position actually, besides bishop d8? Normally in the endgame, I'd like to activate my king. So something like king f7, king e6, if it's possible, probably something that I would do. Although in this position, I don't see the need of it yet. It's just a typical idea when you are entering the endgame and you'd like to get the king move forward, so that if anything happens, you're already there in the battle. Because also in the endgame, it's important to include your king. Otherwise, there are some games, some classical games, where you see that when the king is being involved in the endgame, it gives you like one extra piece. So especially when there's no queens on the board, then the king can just go safely going to the center. Then I think it is one of the idea that players normally seek. Or probably rook f7 is more natural if you want to put the king on the center, even though there's nothing going on the f1 thanks to this bishop. So, okay, and there are a few other. I think h6 is also can be done because after h6, g5, then you can just play g4. And now the king can just go to h7 and g6. So I think in this position, black has a few comfortable options that can be chosen from. So yeah, let's see what Harika has in mind. Oh, h6 is on the board. Yeah. So I think both Harika and I we think alike that we need to activate our king. So instead of being on e6, I think g6 is a more safe place. Bishop d8 is a little bit too sophisticated. It's really looking like an ancient move, but h6 is, yeah, it's quite human. The idea is simple and clear. You want to just get the king to g6 and stopping this pawn from going, and probably somehow transfer this bishop to attack the pawn on g4 at some point. So h6 is on the board. I'm actually wondering how big is the advantage for black in this position, because it might not be that much, but at least there's some advantage. So okay, h6 is on the board. Okay, it's at least close to +1 for black. Maybe not really. Maybe only about plus 0.70. Yeah. So in this position, there are still many things that can be done, and also in this position, even though black is better for almost the whole time in the middle game, but still white has a decent chance to hold for a draw. So yeah, rook d1 is on the board, and we already talked before that this bishop is best around this diagonal so that it can stop rook f1 and exchange the rook. So probably bishop c4. I don't know whether bishop c4 is necessary, because sometimes you want to provoke your opponent to move the pawns as to weaken the pawn structure. So I don't know whether bishop c4 is necessary, and maybe after bishop c4 b3, and then you play bishop a6, or if you want, you can just go bishop a6 directly. I don't think black will take so much time here. Oh, bishop g6. Okay, bishop g6. I think Harika is a little bit in a hurry right now to go after this pawn. I think I know the reason behind bishop g6 is you want to play something like bishop e8 and then bishop d7, just attacking this pawn. But I think that can be done later on. I think the first thing that black has to be careful of is the exchange of this rook, because out of these squares on the first rank, there is no better square than f1. So after bishop g6, let me check, is black still much better as before? Actually, okay, rook f1 is not a good move here to be made. But instead, copying the idea of blacks after playing h6, that black wants to go king h7, king g6, which no longer possible right now because of the bishop on g6. Now actually, white can do the same by playing king h2 and then king g3. And now this pawn on g4 is going to be protected. And there's no reason for this bishop to go to g6 or later on maybe to e8 to d7 anymore, because there wouldn't be enough attackers to attack the g4 pawn. Yeah, just like what I said before, there are still many chances for both players to go wrong. So even though black was better, but yeah, it is not an easy endgame to convert into a victory. uh, and white can still defend in many ways. But also, white has to be careful because in this position, black is still better. So 40, around 44, 41 minutes on the clock, still have enough time to think about. And we're playing from, actually, we're coming from three different time zones right now. Harika is in India, Zhu Jiner is in China, and myself broadcasting from St. Louis, USA. So it's pretty much my bedtime right now, but this game is just getting exciting. This is actually my type of game. I like such an instructive end game, and but I also enjoy tactical end games. But yeah, this end game, of course, if I was being asked which side that I'd like to play, I would say black. But it is not easy. Clearly, it's not easy. And knight is always very tricky. If you have a knight on the board, be careful of your opponent's knight as well, because it is the trickiest piece on the board. But luckily, both players still have much time on the clock because usually you keep missing stuff in the blitz, or when you have time trouble, the knight can just hop on and off anywhere. Yeah, now we just saw knight e2. So this is also one of the principled moves, because you see, the knight on c3 is not doing anything at the moment. So being on e2 is actually giving the knight more task. It can jump to f4 if necessary, and then yeah, I like actually the idea of king h2, king g3 just being very solid and just putting all the pieces together. So yeah, I think it is I think it is also important to, before playing bishop g6 here, to also think about your opponent's ideas, because the knight on c3 is kind of isolated. If you want to move it some more, it needs more, it needs more tempo to go. Like for example, it goes to b1 and then to d2 and probably to f3, but then when you get to f3, still there is no clear way to continue, because the bishop can go to e2. So that is why it is much preferred for the bishop to go to a6 and then just having full control over this diagonal. So this is one takeaway, a very instructive takeaway from this endgame. And after bishop g6, black is kind of losing its control over that diagonal, and white immediately sees the moment and play knight e2, because the knight couldn't go anywhere before, and now it's just being activated. So Harika is currently lower on time, but still it's not too worrying, because it's still 38 minutes on the clock, and we are looking at a pretty much simple end game, not too complicated, even though it's still pretty hard for both sides, either to defend or to convert. But still, there's not much coming or going on the board. I guess black is kind of regretting her decision of playing bishop g6, because now the bishop has nothing to do over that diagonal. I wonder if putting the bishop back to e4, and now you kind of like getting the king back on the track to g6 will work, or maybe it's not a very good idea, because now having the knight being activated is a bit annoying for black at the moment. Yeah, I like I like the idea of switching the bishop on b6 to the other side of the board, because, well, you no longer really attack anything on d4, right? Because in this position, white already has three defenders, and this bishop is no longer used well on b6, and probably, yeah, putting it to the d8 and then having some control over this diagonal, and maybe offering the exchange on g5, and then we will see two doubled pawns on the g file. That's probably funny, but I think that's a better way to go, because it will limit the knight's activity, and also the pawns will be weak, and this g4 pawn especially, it will be weak. And in such an endgame, bishop is better than knight, because bishop will have longer range to shoot from afar. Okay, bishop e8 is on the board. Harika sticks to her original plan, having the bishop on g6, e8, and then probably soon to d7. But again, there is a very good defensive idea by white here to play king h2 and then king g3 to protect the g4 pawn. So I think that it is also quite natural for white to play, and I'm sure Zhu Jiner will find it. I don't see anything happens if you play knight f4, for example, even though it looks like you're going forward, but there's no clear plan on what to do next after having the knight on f4, whether you want to go to g6 later if the bishop on d7. Still, I think it's better for white to keep the knight on e2 just in case of anything, and then just, yeah, consolidate the position with the king moves to h2 and then to g3. So for those who are in the chat, what's your prediction in this position? What's your prediction in the game? Will it be a draw, or white wins, or black wins? Yeah, in this position, actually, if rook goes to f1, it is an easier endgame for black in the end, because this pawn will fall. So I can just... Oh, king h2 is on the board. Yes, it's a very good defensive idea by white. And after king g3, white can breathe for a while because there is no more weakness to be worried of. Oh, there's one funny line. I will just show it on the analysis board. Yeah, I cannot turn the engine on when the live game is being streamed or being played, because it can only be... the engine can only be turned on when the game is already finished. So there's one funny line here after rook f1. This is actually very good. It's very concrete. So you go bishop d7 immediately. Okay, let's say you take on f8, king takes f8, and then how to save this pawn? You have to move it forward, and you just take it, safely take it. And after bishop takes, you play bishop g4, and now this pawn is hanging. So that is actually one concrete continuation if white suddenly played rook f1 and not king h2. Yeah, this is nice. This is a nice touch, because sometimes in this type of endgame, sometimes you go for strategical play, but also you have to be aware that there is a concrete continuation happening on the board. And this is when both players really have to be careful and to watch out of each other. Okay, let's back to the game. So after king h2, okay, black is still thinking at the moment. Yeah, because the only idea of bishop e8 is to play bishop d7. But now if black plays bishop d7 and after king g3, uh, black has to be creative in finding another plan to continue this game, because after that position, everything is protected and it will be hard for black to continue. Ooh, surprisingly, if bishop d7 and then king g3 are being played, it is just equal 0-0. But before that, before all of this happened, it was yeah, black was better, close to plus point one. Sorry, plus one. Yeah. There is no delay from the game. We are currently watching it live. And for those who just joined, welcome. We're looking at the friendly match between Grandmaster Harika Dronavalli from India versus woman Grandmaster Zhu Jiner from China. This event is sponsored by the Qatar Chess Association, and we are looking at the first standard game. The time control is 60 minutes plus 30 seconds per move, and there will be two standard games, one game today and another game tomorrow. And then on the 12th of December, there will be two rapid games and four blitz games. So stay tuned. We'll be playing on the same time every day, and both players are two of the best in the world. So this match is going to be very exciting and very instructive, I would say. Finally, bishop d8. This is the move that I've been trying to get for black, because again, the bishop on b6 is no longer working as good as it used to. And now switching to d8 and with a possibility of exchanging it somewhere on g5, probably after king h7 and then king g6. This is a very good one possibility that can be played. Or just by being on d8 itself, just to stop any possibility of g5, it's already good. And now it is a question on white, whether white can really utilize the knight here, because now the knight is just a much better knight than it was before. The knight on e2 now can just jump to e5, for example, if white wants to. Let's say knight goes to g3 and goes to f5, but I think in this position it's not really feasible, because there's a threat of bishop d7 hitting the pawn on g4, so white still has to be careful. Or the knight can also jump to f4, though I don't think this is also a good move, because this bishop is just being moved to d8, and probably after knight f4, bishop g5 is in order. So yes, king g3 is a more solid move. So it is not only about finding our own idea, but it is also about anticipating your opponent's idea or intentions, because sometimes your move can be a combination of both, or your move can be just of one purpose, that is to stop your opponent's idea or just to carry on with your own idea. But if you can get like a multifunction move that combining both of the ideas, then normally it is a good move. So Harika is currently down to 32 minutes and Zhu Jiner still has 42 minutes. If they keep playing like this, I think how much time they have on the clock later will be very crucial because yeah, for such an end game, well, it's not very easy, but it looks like it's a simple position, but not really easy to find the best continuation and what would be the best idea to carry on. And there's still so many nuances here that both of the players have to be careful of. Yeah, currently computer showing this position as 0, 0, 0, so it's just that equal. Black probably has a few options here to play. I'm wondering if it is wise to start going with all the pawns on the queen side, or is there anything else to do on the king side? Like, for example, our old main idea of king h7, king g6. Yeah, but with the pair of bishops, black is pretty safe. So there's still a lot of move that can be chosen from, and I think any move that black can do here, any natural move that black do, it will be all right for black's position. Both players looking like thinking very hard. Yeah, 30 minutes on the clock for Harika and 42 minutes for Zhu Jiner. Both players have 12 years difference. So it's always interesting to see a game that's being played by a slightly different generation, because the moves that being played sometimes for the younger generation it is very much influenced by the computer moves, and for the older generations it is usually influenced by all the principles, old classical books and old classical games. So yeah, we'll see. This end game has already happening for about half an hour. Hopefully none of them worsen their own position. Yeah, here commenters are just many moves actually. Black can play king f7, for example. I think it is in black's favor if the rooks is being exchanged. So I was quite mistaken before. I thought by exchanging the rooks it would be better for white, but I was wrong. So king f7 is one of the ideas, and probably g5, although g5 doesn't look like a very human move because it is a bit counterintuitive. You just played bishop to d8 and probably with the idea of somehow putting the bishop on g5, but if you played g5 yourself, yeah, it's not looking too human. Oh, bishop d7, another natural move. So black doesn't want to commit to anything, any move like a5 or b5, but instead black is just waiting and trying to see what white has in mind, what white is planning to do. Still computer gives 0, 0, 0 for this position. And yeah, white now has a few options. Either pushing the pawns, one of the pawns on the queen side, this b3 or a4, or moving the knight, actually also good, or pretty much just wait. So this is actually one of the hardest things to do in chess, that is to wait. And in the tournament games, sometimes you feel like, oh, you have to do something. But by doing something, usually you just worsen your own position. And normally also that, waiting it's not to your liking. It's as if like, oh, I'm wasting time. I'm letting my opponent to do something while I'm not doing anything. But in this position, I think the best thing to do is just to wait. So that is why move like bishop d2 is also one of the suggestions by computer. Or if you want to play knight f4 is also fine, but it doesn't mean that playing the knight to f4 will have another idea next. Like, I don't see any future after knight f4. So yeah, basically both players here, especially white, I guess, she just needs to wait, not to worsen the position, and then just try to, you know, try to just consolidate all the pieces, not letting any weaknesses and so on. So white is thinking at the moment. Being a younger player, I'm wondering if Zhu Jiner has very good patience over this position, or whether she would like to push something and then try to mud the water. Rook e1, one of the waiting moves, I guess. Yeah, in this position, if black doesn't do anything, there will not be any progress. So if black is ambitious to somehow try to win the game, black has to push the pawns on the queen side, like by playing f5 and b5 and so on. But okay, bishop f5 is on the board. Are we going to see some repetition in this move? Because I think both players mutually understood that there's nothing going on in this position. Like if the rook goes back to d1, and if black bishop goes back to d8, it's just like a signal that you give to your opponent that, hey, I'm offering you a draw, without actually offering a draw. So we'll see. Because the rook has to stay on the first rank anyway. And I don't see any other good square to move. Or probably actually it's just the same. Actually in this position, yeah, putting the rook on a1 is also alright. Although, of course, there's no reason of putting the rook on a1. Probably the best is just to go back to d1. And then black might repeat the same thing again. And also it's sometimes, during the game, when you knew that you were better, and at some point the evaluation of the position change, your mind and your heart were still thinking that you were better. And sometimes it's hard to put your mindset into it. All right, we are seeing the indirect draw offer on the board. Will both players repeat? Yeah, in at this moment, it's just completely dead equal. So even if white played rook a1, even if black played king h8, is still equal. So if both players agree for a draw, it is a correct decision, because there's nothing going on the board. And maybe after this, I'm going to ask the players what they think over the game. Yeah, for positions like this, we can give it to Carson, because even in the opposite colored bishop endgames, when it's looking like it's completely drawn, um, he can just try to, you know, get it into something it's in his favor, like somehow win the game from nothing. So Okay, now, wow, actually, now white is trying to decide whether she wants to get a draw or not, or whether she wants to push. So, not only about the technicality of the game itself, sometimes um, it is also astonishing to see the psychological aspect behind it, because most players, they not only function by the game itself, but also sometimes some feelings get involved. You get emotional, and then it actually affect the way you make your decision. So I'm curious to see right now whether white is going for a win, as in to try to push for a win, or just to stick to a safe draw and just by playing rook e1 again and then repeat the moves. Also, it's sometimes you're feeling a bit in such a dual match when you are playing as white. Sometimes you feel that it is your responsibility to push for a win, and now, yes, knight g1 is happening on the board. So Zhu Jiner's young heart is going to try for this position, which is not wrong because the knight is kind of tricky. But again, if you decide to try to push for a win, then it means you still have to be careful, not only being ambitious about your own position, but also to be objective that your opponent also has something up in her sleeve. So knight g1, probably trying to go to knight f3. But again, even if you put the knight on f3, what are you going to do next? I think the same question can also be asked for black. Like if black just dances around with the pair of bishops without really doing anything, then there wouldn't be any progress. So following the same manner as white, if black wants to try to push, it has to be with the pawns on the queen side to play such moves like a5 and b5. Oh, now g5 is happening. G5 is happening. And it is, yeah, g5 is one of the best moves in these positions. I think, yeah, I think black just want to stop everything in the king side and switch back to queen side and focus on there. Because after g5, now the king is forever stuck on g3, protecting the g4 pawn. And now, probably after knight f3, that's nothing much going on. The bishop can be just stopping everything on e6. And then probably this bishop will just go to e7, and then this rook will somehow switch to b8 or a8, supporting the pawns to move like this. Yeah, this bishop on e3 doesn't look really good because it doesn't really have good diagonal to be on. And yeah, and the rook here on d1 has to cover the first rank all the time. White cannot afford of having the black's rook going over to f1 and then just distract everything on the back rank. So g5, knight f3, a natural move. And now let's see. I think both players will try to play a bit quicker right now. Mainly because, yeah, just about the time management. There's nothing much going on the board. It's better to save time for some critical position later on. So yeah, moves like king g7 and then king g6, and probably white will do the same as well with the rook. Like rook will dance around on the first rank to h1 or back to d1 and to e1. Basically just has to wait. Yeah, I wonder actually what's the evaluation of this position. So after king g7, yeah, black is back now to slightly better. But it is very, very slightly still. So white still has a good chance to defend his position for sure. Rook d2, yeah. Still, there's nothing much going on. White just has to wait. And probably now black is the one who is pushing for a win. Black can try, yeah, black can try to improve the pair of bishops by playing bishop e6, bishop e7, and then put the rook to the other side. But that means that black has to be consequent to play the pawn moves. It means that black needs to be committed about all those plans. If not, then again, nothing much going on, and then both players can just agree for a draw. So let's see what Harika was planning beforehand. Yeah, this is such a funny pawn structure because when we were young, we were being told that it's better to have a lesser number of pawn islands, and that is why in this position black is better because black has 2 pawn islands and white has 3 pawn islands, and one of the islands it's actually doubled pawns. So yeah, black is better due to that. But since this is not a very open position and black has a pair of bishops where normally it is a good thing to have, so chess is kind of cancel each other out. Like you have one principle, but then there's another principle that cancels it out, but there's another principle that cancels the other out. So yeah, the best way to do it is just to know all the principles and then choose the best ones or choose the proper one to use, because not all principles can be used at the same time, and not all the principles are correct at the same time as well. Yeah, this is such a I didn't expect that it would be quite complicated endgame. I thought it was either an easy draw earlier on, or one of them would fall apart immediately. But no, both of them are very fighting at the moment, and I don't see I don't see the game will be ending anytime soon. If it ends, it should be by some mutual agreement of a draw. But if they keep fighting like this, I think they would fight till the end. Yep, so improving the bishops, we already mentioned that before. And now it's a question where to put the rook on f8. Yeah, I don't say much about white in this position because really white doesn't have clear idea to do. The only side that can push for win in this position is black. So now it is a question whether black wants to be committal, whether to push the pawn on the queen side or just move around the rook and then just wait for opponents to do some blunders. But it would be a very slim chance for white to do any blunders in this position. So probably rook a8, rook b8, on start moving the pawns. I think it's a good time that after bishop e7, here probably white will play the rook again. I don't know, maybe to e2 or to d2 or to f1 back. But I think after that it would be a good time for black to start moving the pawns like this. So a5 and probably a4 next is also good, and then just put it on a3, and then perhaps with that pawn moves it will create an opening file for the rook to go to a8 and probably to a5 and b5 and so on. Yeah, it's just one idea, but again, only black can play for a win in this position, and if black wants to draw, it's guaranteed. White is offering an exchange for the rook, and now, wow, we can see that Harika understood correctly that in this type of endgame, if there are no rooks on the board, it will be easier for black to continue. And Harika just played rook f2 immediately without thinking, and now I'm sure she has something up in her mind right now. Yeah, it was from 000, and now it's almost 1.5 for black after the exchange of the rook. So that was a very critical blunder, I would say, positional mistake by Zhu Jiner, where she just has to wait, and then if black wants to try to push for a win later, then she would have to react to it. But instead she reacted by herself and then offered this exchange that is not to her favor. And now b6 is on the board. That is a very good move. You want to centralize all your pawns, and c5 is coming next. If you have c5 on the board and then you're attacking d4, and this pawn on e5 will be very much weak. So we're going to talk about another principle in chess, that in such an endgame, usually you would like to get a second weakness. And I think this is what black is trying to do, to create a second weakness of white, because the first weakness we can already tell that the g4 pawn is the permanent weakness that white will forever has to endure. So normally, if you only have one weakness or your opponent's weakness, it's not enough to win the game. And b6 and c5 is a very good idea to create another weakness, the second weakness, and preferably both weaknesses are on different side of the board, so it will make it harder for your opponent to defend both weaknesses at the same time. So I think this is what I like about classical principle chess. You can really explain it on the board, what is the other person trying to do. But it is also sometimes refreshing to see like younger players when they play very intuitively and very aggressively based on their own calculation. It's just so refreshing as well. How their moves are, just how they calculate and how they decide is sometimes, blows my mind. But it is also important to understand the principles and all the strategy both in the middle game and end game like this. And when you are playing with minor pieces on the board, a pair of bishops against a bishop and a knight, or a pair of bishops against another a pair of bishops, and of course not to mention about the pawn structures as well. You have to really understand in order to play it well. And I think in this position, knowing Harika and how solid of understanding she has, I think she will win this position. So it is a serious situation right now for white. Definitely the knight over here on d2 has to be transferred somewhere, and it is not an easy task because yes, even if black doesn't do anything too committal, okay, a preparation move like king g6 before playing something like c5, I think it is a wise thing to do. And again, this g4 is the permanent weakness, so it is very hard for white to defend it. The king might be stuck defending it all the time, and now it is a matter of this knight where to go. I don't see a very good square for the knight. This bishop has definitely to be on this diagonal, just trying to protect on d4. And yeah, so again, waiting is one of the hardest things to do in chess, and especially in such an endgame where all you have to do is wait. Of course, it's easy for me to say because we've been analyzing this, we've been trying to understand this, but from players' point of view, of course, it is hard because you're playing against time, you're also playing against your own self, on top of playing against your opponent, of course. h5, this is such a peculiar decision to make because I don't think I would trade my pawn with that weakness. I think I would just stick to my plan of playing c5 and so on. But let me check. Am I missing something? So after b6, king f3, king g6, knight f1, h5. Oh, this is quite serious. Even though black is having a very safe position that black can just do whatever she wants. Yeah, but c5 is quite committal. This is actually surprising for me because normally you want to hold on to the g4 pawn all the time because that's the weakness of your opponents. But now you're offering an exchange. Although, yeah, after h5, it is still better for black. So I think the downside of that move, even though you're exchanging the pawn, but I mean the good thing is that the king will be on h5 and it will be a much better place for the king. But now knight a3 is on the board and then takes. Okay, that is again a little inaccuracy by black, that in this position it is much preferred to play h4. I think this looks quite natural to play h4, don't you think? Because the g4 pawn, again, is the weakness and you have to keep holding on to it forever. And having the pawn on h6 compared to having the pawn on h4, just compare those two positions. Okay, doesn't really matter where the knight is because the knight, okay, was on d2 and now on e3, but the knight is not really much improved. But the pawn, from being a backward pawn on h6, and if you just move it to h4, and it is a much advanced pawn, closer to the promotion square if needed be later on in the future, and it also restricts the bishop on f2. So in hindsight, I think it is just a natural decision to make. I'm very surprised that Harika, instead of playing or even thinking a little bit about h4, she immediately took on g4 and allowing this position, knight g4, bishop f5, and knight f6. So this is probably something that Harika missed, that white just wanted to give a pawn in order to get an opposite colored bishop, though sometimes it can be drawn but sometimes not. But probably in this position it is enough for a draw if it happens on the board. So bishop f5, knight f6. Yeah, you cannot win the game without taking the knight on f6, but that might not be enough still. But again, if you want to try for win, you have to take on the knight on f6. This is such a good and tricky defensive idea by Zhu Jiner, I would say. And she found it rather quickly as well. So she must have thought about it beforehand. Okay, bishop e4. I think king has to go to g3 to protect the g2 pawn. And after that, the king will take on f6, and then we will see quite a long endgame again. How white will try to defend the position and to prove that by sacrificing a pawn, it's enough for white to make a draw. And on the other hand, black will try to win the game by having an extra pawn. I'm missing something again apparently. King g4 is on the board, allowing this bishop to take on g2, but at the same time, if the bishop takes on g2, then bishop will go to e3 and then takes on this pawn. And every simplification in this position will be in white's favor. But there's nothing much that black can do to prevent it, because the g5 pawn is on the dark square. And you cannot really do anything about it. Yeah, or even if after king takes f6 right now, you can just safely play g3 first, and then, yeah, if king f6, you can play g3 first, saving the pawn, and then bishop e3 is gonna come next, and g5 will be fallen apart. Okay, so instead of a long endgame, I think in the coming few moves, I think both players will agree for a draw. Or maybe not. I've been predicting wrongly sometimes tonight, so we'll see whether it is worth trying to push a pawn on c5. Though at the moment it's not possible because of the bishop on f2, but maybe in the near future. Yeah, from the video, Zhu Jiner looks a bit relaxed, knowing that this game likely to be ended with a draw, and Harika is trying to find her way. Having an extra pawn should mean something or should count for something, but probably not enough still for this position. Okay, 26 minutes on the clock for black and 29 minutes on the clock for white. Not so much difference. And this is a much simpler endgame than it was before. Yeah, Harika missed a few things, and also some inaccuracy was played. But again, such a thing is not easy, especially when you're playing and you have to understand so many things at the same time. So, and probably, I think I have my suspicion that Harika might miss a few variations here or a few lines. That's why she decided to go on this position. Probably she missed knight f6 idea. Bishop c2 is on the board. This is rather strange. I mean, it's quite strange for me. What is she going to do? Okay, so bishop d1. So she wants to save the pawn on g5. But what about f7 now? f7, then just give a check, yeah? give a check, and when the king goes anywhere, then you can just take it. Okay. But that pawn is going to be lost anyway. This f pawn. I mean, it is already in black's hand. So sooner or later, black will take it, no matter what. Bishop c2. Yeah, it is still slightly better for black. It's just a reason. I mean, it's just a question whether it is enough to win or not. Yeah, it is actually, well, this move, you just didn't expect it. And it is actually not a bad move. It is a surprising move and might throw your opponent off. So these players, when they're just the best in the world, they always have something up in their sleeve. So yeah, kudos to both of them. We're almost entering to the second hour of the game right now. We still have much time on the clock for both players. So King h3, just played by Zhu Jiner. King h3, and probably now is the time to take on f6 and then try to do something over the queen side with the extra pawn. There's actually some games that like this that that the side that has an extra pawn will eventually win. So g4, nice. I didn't expect it again. Takes and then g4. This will simplify things because the king, well, if black doesn't want to trade any of the pawns on the king side, the king has to stay around the g pawn because the bishop will just attack it on e3. But on the other hand, if somehow, let's imagine these two pawns on g4 and g5 were eliminated off the board, and there are only 3 pawns for white on the queen side and 4 pawns for black on the queen side, it will be just easy draw to make. So this g4 is a very good move. It's just stopping everything, and then at the same time you're just dancing around with your pieces. Okay, a4 is now being played, and here white has to be careful, I guess, not to fall onto anything. Putting everything on the dark square is a very smart move. You're just putting the pawns on the dark square, the opposite square of your opponent's bishop, so that it can be protected by itself. And now bishop e2, and we will just wait. Actually, both kings have to be around their own pawns on g4 and g5, and now it's just a matter of how these two bishops dancing around. I don't think there's going to be much in progress, because in order to make any progress here, you have to make use of c5, and in this position c5 will never be played on the board because of the bishop here, unless these two pawns on g4 and g5 are being eliminated. So yeah, players will just repeat the moves knowing that this position is just dead drawn. Okay, threefold repetition and draw. And I think let's hop on the Zoom call.
Irene is going to come and
yes,
for a few comments.
Hello guys, you are on call right. Oh, hi guys, well done. Yeah, you are live right now. Yeah, well done. It was such an interesting game. Oh, Zhu Jiner, please don't move the Zoom call or anything because okay. It's just a little bit different setup right now. 1 second. I will just move it a little bit. So, How do you feel, guys?
For me, it's like first classical game ever online. It feels like too much of time. I was just trying to control a bit and play slowly, but yeah, it's interesting match.
Yeah. So in the earlier on, black was actually much better. So I don't know what you felt during the game. Did you think you were better?
No, of course, it is clear that I'm better, but I didn't know how much it is. I think the mistake was to maybe play f6. I had like two options to play f6 or queen h4. Uh, f6 felt easier to play,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe queen h4 is would maintain more pressure. I'm not sure. But after f6, I think whatever I could see, I played. Maybe I missed something, but I couldn't put it out.
Yeah, there was some position when you played oh, when there's rook d1 and then you play bishop g6, it is actually much preferred if you just play bishop a6, stopping knight e2 or anything to do with that diagonal. Because then when the knight was being activated, actually it was some quite an equal position like 0 0 0, and then when white decided to exchange the the rook, it was actually almost uh plus 1.5 for black.
Yeah, it's clear the double bishop should give me some chances. So I
Mm-hmm.
think bishop a6 accounted for this side somehow. I didn't even consider it, keeping the bishop on e6.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it was a miss. But then in the end, I realized I'm better, but I think I was too slow to play b6. Maybe I should have started with king g6 in the first case and tried to get this h5 and open the position a bit. It should be very uncomfortable position for white in the ending, but I think I gave her chance one move where she could come like knight f1, knight e3, because of which I think it was fast for white.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think, Jiner? Was that your preparation to play this variation? Because in the opening you played quite quickly, and then at some point you kind of paused with queen e2. So what do you think about the opening?
Yeah, I don't play this opening before the game, so I play not so well. I only check the line. Black play a6 first and then bishop c5, so it's different, and I don't remember clear this bishop c5.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it was interesting in the opening as well. Yeah, because I thought both of you are still on the book for the first 10 moves, but then I realized that yeah, one of you might not be familiar with the position, but overall it was a very good fighting game. A good fighting draw. Just a few inaccuracies. I think black was quite much better in the middle game towards the end game. But yeah, I think Harika, I think you missed the idea of knight f6 and just exchanging this knight with the bishop and then having an extra pawn that's not enough to win the game. Yeah.
Okay, I know that the opposite color bishop would make it wrong, but I think I was just a bit slow about playing b6 and all. I think I should have
Yeah.
just first played king g6, h5, and then continue with this b6 plan, and it would have been a lot of pressure. But I think Indian shows it because of the double bishop, like it shows too much of like better for the double bishops. It likes bishops somehow. So I don't know how practically it's easier. But yes, I could have played for more time. I missed a couple of moves.
Mm-hmm.
I allowed her to get this king f3, knight f1, knight g3 or e2 faster. I
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't have allowed that. I think I could have kept more pressure in that way.
Mm-hmm. Oh well. Okay. Uh, thanks for the game. It was very entertaining for us to watch, and I'm very looking forward to see the next game tomorrow. Good luck to both of you. Have fun in preparing the games tomorrow.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, great. So we are done for today. I wish you a great rest of your day there. And
Okay. Okay, thank you guys for watching. That's it for today. And we saw the first game ended with a draw. And then tomorrow we will be playing on the same time again. And this time the color will be reversed. Harika will play as white and Zhu Jiner will play as black. So stay tuned and see you tomorrow. Bye.